This is part 2, episode 130. Hui Yuhao removed his imitation and revealed his actual appearance. He nodded lightly and said, "I'm fine." Juicy gave him a slight smile and said, "You see, I have been leading the great army into battle. It's not good for me, but it's not bad either." Hui Yuhao stared at her as she stared back at him. They went quiet in that instant. Juicy's eyes were very passionate, but Hui Yuhao's were full of lament. A long time had gone by, but he could still remember vividly even now when he brought Juicy deep into the lair of soul beasts and risked their lives. He's really the person who destroyed our aerial surveillance soldiers? Juicy suddenly asked. Hui Yuhao nodded in response. Juicy heaved a sigh and turned around. She gazed in the direction of where her Fire Phoenix Legion and army were camped as she said bitterly, "I never thought that those words that I said back then would come true. The thing I really didn't want to happen finally did. We have finally met again on the battlefield after all." Hui Yuhao said, "You're just a girl, why do you have to throw yourself into this war? Haven't you married Xu Qianran? He actually allows you to show yourself outside." Juicy said plainly, "He is a person who is very sensitive to danger, and he doesn't even trust the people closest to him. I am the exception, because I saved his life when he was in the most difficult of times. Therefore, he has always trusted me. Our marriage was just a ceremonial process so that he can allow me to do more. You can say that I am his wife, but it's more accurate to say that I am his most trusted subject. Military power has always been most important in his eyes, so he inserted me into the army. You may not believe me, but when he was severely injured all those years ago, not only were his legs crippled, but he's also infertile. I haven't been staying together with him till today." Hui Yuhao was astonished when he heard her words. He was an emperor, but he was infertile. If this secret was known to the public, it would probably shake Xu Qianran's throne to its very core. Juicy chuckled and said, "I'm telling you all this, and it seems like your status in my mind has surpassed his. But I believe you won't say this to anyone, right?" Hui Yuhao said, "Since you trust me, what else can I say? I'm not such a bad person." Juicy turned around and stared at him again. "I'm sorry, Yuhao. Even though I am unwilling to leave you under such circumstances, I am very happy to see you alive. Don't fight against me, okay? You will not be my match on the battlefield. Your heart is too soft, and that is especially so for those beside you. Your heart has always been too soft." Hui Yuhao frowned as his eyes gradually grew cold. That was because he could see that Juicy's large eyes were flickering with decisive emotions. "Juicy, I can take you away if you're willing. I can take you away from the Sun Moon Empire. You can start an entirely new life. You have personally been through the cruelty of war, so why do you have to bring war to even more people?" Juicy's expression changed, and her voice suddenly became shrill. "That's easy for you to say. The Star Luo Empire's army killed my father back then and ruined my family, so why don't you say that to their generals and commanders? They destroyed me and everything I had, and I want revenge. I told you a long time ago that the reason why I'm still alive in this world is for revenge. Anybody who will help me exact my revenge will be doing me a favor. Xu Qianran is my benefactor, and you are not." Hui Yuhao felt the resentment that was rippling from Juicy, and he fell silent. They returned to their quiet interactions before. The resentment on Juicy's face gradually disappeared after a moment, and a faint smile surfaced. "Why are we talking about this after not seeing each other for so long? I don't want such bliss that's so hard to come by disappear like that. Walk away, Yuhao. We have become two parallel lines that are destined to never converge. You have your path, and I have mine. Unless you kill me now, you can't stop me. Nobody can stop me from moving forward. And one day, I will lead the Sun Moon Empire's great army to flatten the Donor continent's 3 empires and conquer the world. There will no longer be conflict on the continent when that happens, and I will rule over this country properly, so that there will be eternal peace." Her eyes were full of passion as she spoke. Hui Yuhao felt his heart tremble when he heard her words. "Rule this country properly, huh?" Juicy smiled and stared at the shock in Hui Yuhao's eyes. "For some reason, I can never hide the words that are deep in my heart whenever I'm with you. Perhaps it's because you are the only man I've ever liked in the world. Seems like my choice was right. You have become so powerful now. You're not yet a title donor, and yet even though I don't know how you've done it, I can feel that you are far more threatening than typical title donor to me. If you're willing to help me, when I have conquered the entire continent, I am willing to be the woman behind it. Alright? When that happens, I trust that you will have reached the pinnacle of the human world. You're only 20 years old, and yet you already possess such power. Furthermore, you're not like me, because I've used a lot of medicines and drugs to raise my strength. My senses are very strong, and I can feel the aura of a very powerful individual of our generation from you. You will definitely become a transcendent donor, perhaps even an ultimate donor. Stand by my side. If that happens, I will be filled with hope and even more fighting spirit. I will definitely attain my goal in an even shorter period of time. Hu Yuhao slowly but determinedly shook his head as he gazed into the burning passion in her eyes. Juzi, you're right. We are two lines that can no longer converge, and you have your resolutions while I have my own motivations. Yes, the empire that can conquer the entire continent will bring peace in the future. But have you considered how many lives have to be given in this war to reach this goal of peace? Juzi said coldly, success is paved with lives, and the future has to be built on rivers of blood. Hu Yuhao grunted coldly and said, Juzi, I didn't expect you to be so cold-blooded. How are you any different from an evil soul master? Even though I don't know what you're going to do in the future, you should know that the Sun Moon Empire is playing with fire by cooperating with the Holy Ghost Church. The Holy Ghost Church has so many evil soul masters, and they are extremely formidable. Their two ultimate donors are the most powerful human beings in the world. Do you really believe that you can control them? In the future, even if the Sun Moon Empire can conquer the whole continent, will these evil soul masters remain silent? I'm afraid they will have the same goals as you. Juzi laughed, and her laughter was brilliant with confidence. I don't need you to worry about those things. As long as you're willing to be together with me and help me, I will slowly let you understand my plan. The Holy Ghost Church is very powerful, but even the strongest of men have weaknesses. Furthermore, they are a sect. What I control is an empire's strength. Do you really believe that individual strength can fight against an entire empire? Be the man behind me, you have. Please, consider me begging you. Juzi suddenly became very weak as her words stopped there. 2 rows of tears slid down her cheeks as the transparent teardrops swiftly turned into ice and dropped to the ground before they shattered into pieces. Hu Yuhao stared at her. There was uncertainty in her eyes, and there was fear, but there was more hope. He knew that this was perhaps the last time their destinies would intersect. But could he really do that? Hu Yuhao took a step forward as he shook his head lightly. He brought Juzi into his embrace and said, I'm sorry, Juzi, but I can't. You have your resolutions, and I have mine. Even though I am not willing to admit it, perhaps we can only be enemies. After today, I will risk everything to stop the Sun Moon Empire's invasion. I wish for peace in the continent, and I will work to that until the day I die. Juzi let him hug her. She raised her arms and wrapped them around his sturdy back. She didn't attempt to convince him anymore, and just allowed her tears to flow like waterfalls, and her teardrops turned into ice on her beautiful face. The two of them were just hugging each other, and Juzi raised her head after a moment as she gently pushed Hu Yuhao away. You are the person I am least willing to have as an enemy. Do you know that? Juzi said agonizingly. Hu Yuhao raised his head into the sky and said, you and me both. Juzi nodded gently and said, all right, since you've made your choice, then we can only be enemies after today. Have you ever liked me? Hu Yuhao trembled before he gently nodded. Juzi smiled and walked next to him. She placed her arm around his neck as she pressed her lips close to his ear. I guess I have not liked you for nothing. Thank you, even if you're lying to me, I'm still very happy. Hu Yuhao heaved a sigh and said, why would I lie to you? You were the first woman that walked into my heart. There are just too many hurdles and barriers between us, too many. Juzi, you. Juzi suddenly raised her hand and pressed it against his lips. She didn't let him continue. Since we have our own resolutions, then from today onwards, can we stop attempting to convince each other? We will both work hard on our own paths. Several years or even decades later, when one of us has achieved our goal, everything will be different. Don't you think so? Or Yu Hao gently nodded. He knew that any attempt to convince her would be futile. Juzi cupped his face in her hands as she stared into his eyes from as near as they could be. She stroked his face tenderly as she felt the warmth coming from his cheeks, and her eyes were covered with moisture once more. I can't bear to leave you, you know that, she said gently. For Yu Hao's body shook, but he couldn't say anything at all. He did like Juzi before, but his heart now truly belonged only to Donga. Furthermore, even if Don Jia hadn't appeared, he couldn't go against his principles for Juzi. However, his heart was truly aching so much in this moment. I want to kiss you, may I? Consider it a farewell kiss. Juzi said softly. For Yu Hao was momentarily stunned. Juzi stepped forward against his body without waiting for his response as her ice-cold but moist lips pressed tightly against his. Her lips were soft and fragrant. For Yu Hao was a normal man, and especially because of the atmosphere they were in, he really couldn't push her away. Subtle intoxication coursed over his body, and Hui Yu Hao suddenly felt as if his entire being was immersed in this feeling. Even his spirit began to feel a little lost in the next moment. Hui Yu Hao grunted softly, and his eyes suddenly widened, because he could clearly feel that something wasn't right. Juzi was still kissing him, and she smiled gently. Her lips parted as she said, "Don't try to struggle. This infinite intoxication has no antidote. It's not poisonous, it will only make you sleep for a little while. I love you, Yu Hao, I love you. You will be the only man that I will ever love in this life." Yu Hao's body gradually slid into her arms along with her soft and fine words. The infinite intoxication was too strong. Yu Hao's spiritual sea was almost instantly cut off by that strange drug, and he couldn't even communicate with his formidable spirit. His consciousness slowly left him, and only a bitter smile remained on the corner of his mouth. Juzi is right, my heart is just too soft. Juzi placed him carefully onto the ground as she sat quietly beside him. She raised one of his arms and rested against it as she curled herself up against his chest. Snow and ice was everywhere around them, but the extreme north's low temperature didn't affect the burning passion in her heart at all. She had been waiting for this day for far too long. The feeling of curling up in his arms was wonderful. Waves of warmth emanated from Juzi and spread over both of their bodies to fight against the severe cold around them. She was just lying there, silent and enchanted, enjoying this rare blissful moment. 15 minutes passed as she lay there motionless, and there was only happiness on her face. She slowly sat up from Hui Yu Hao's embrace after 15 minutes. The warmth, tenderness, and bliss on her face was gradually substituted by ice. She gradually stood up as she stared at Hui Yu Hao beside her. She muttered, "I did say that your heart was too soft, especially towards people you like. But why do I dislike that about you? I can feel that you will be an enormous threat to my future plans, and I should kill you at this time. Killing you can resolve the only remaining soft emotions in my heart, and I can eliminate a great threat at the same time." Juzi flipped her wrist as she spoke, and a spike that was yellowish all over appeared in her grip. Nervousness flickered in her eyes, but lasted but a moment before she smiled. "He won't kill me, so how can I kill him? His heart is soft, and mine is cold, but my heart melts only when I am with him. You're so foolish. No matter what, I will not hurt you. Do you know that? As long as you're alive, I will not go insane. That bit of tenderness in my heart is what I treasure the most. Not only will I not hurt you if somebody else hurts you, I will kill that person no matter who he or she is." She tapped the tip of her foot gently against Hui Yu Hao's waist as she spoke, and flipped Hui Yu Hao onto his side. She squatted down beside him and stared at him seriously. After few moments, she raised the yellow spike and thrust it ferociously towards Hu Yuhao's waist. A cold wind billowed. The sky was already bright when Hu Yuhao came to from his blackout. Daytime in the extreme north was a lot shorter compared to the inner mainland. The sky was already completely bright at this point, but it still looked very dim. Hu Yuhao swiftly sat up and glanced down at himself subconsciously. He didn't feel anything different. He looked around him, and everything was just snow and ice. However, the soul tools that Hu Yuhao had detected that generated heat were placed in a circle around him. These were the things that had been giving him warmth before. Even though he possessed ultimate ice and wasn't afraid of the cold, he couldn't help but feel a wave of warmth flow through his body when he saw those soul tools that generated heat. Hi, Juzi. Hu Yuhao stood up and gazed in the direction of the Sun Moon Empire's great army. He shook his head exasperatedly, but his gaze quickly turned to one of determination. I'm sorry, Juzi. You have your targets, but I have to stop you. I cannot let you achieve your goal. If we meet again on the battlefield, perhaps that is our destiny. Yuhao, she is right. Your heart is too soft. If she wanted to do something bad to you, you would have died 100 times over. A shadow flickered as the Snow Empress glimmered soundlessly beside him. He snapped around at the Snow Empress and saw her displeased look. Hu Yuhao's 4 spirits were powerful, but their existence depended on Hu Yuhao, after all. During the previous night, after Hu Yuhao's spiritual seed was blocked off by that sinister infinite intoxication, his 4 spirits couldn't channel his strength no matter how worried they were. They couldn't even come out because his spiritual sea was shut off. I'm sorry, Snow Empress. Hu Yuhao forced a laugh as he spoke. The Snow Empress said plainly, you don't have to apologize to me. Your soft-heartedness has led you to your current dire situation. That woman is dangerous. If you can, killing her is the best choice. Hu Yuhao laughed bitterly and said, I can't do it. Juzi has saved my life before. The Snow Empress waved him off and didn't let him continue. If you can't do it, then don't interact with her so closely anymore. What do you intend to do next? Hu Yuhao answered, I will continue investigating what this army is here to do. They have come so far into the extreme north, and it can't be that they are here to deal with me. They must have some other objective. I will discover their objective, and then I will stop them. The Snow Empress thought for a moment, then said, that's not difficult. This is my home, and it's also the Ice Empress' home. Hu Yuhao's eyes glowed as he heard her words. What do you mean, Snow Empress? The Snow Empress said, you should wait until you find out what they want. Otherwise, we can't do anything against them. Alright, Hu Yuhao acknowledged. Even though he was soft-hearted toward Juzi, he was never unclear about the bigger picture. He wouldn't give up on his own goal just because Juzi is the commander of the Sun Moon Empire's army. Hu Yuhao ate some dry rations and readjusted himself to make sure that his body was alright before he traveled in the direction of where the Sun Moon Empire's army was camped. He had confidence. Even if the army was gone, he could still track them using any traces they had left behind with his abilities. However, the Sun Moon Empire's army was still there, and they were still camped where they were the previous night. Furthermore, the soul engineers and soldiers were starting to get busy. They were still building based on the foundations of the trap they had set for Hu Yuhao the previous day, but he didn't know what they were doing. Hu Yuhao's eyes closed into slits as he watched them hustle around, and he began to think. It seemed like this place was their destination. But what could they be doing in a place like this? He had learned his lesson, and he wouldn't go in to investigate anymore. Furthermore, even if he did, he had to be especially careful. He wasn't interested in causing damage right now, as finding out the Sun Moon Empire's objective was more important. Hu Yuhao observed quietly in the snow and ice, and a day passed just like that. There were a lot of soul engineers participating in the labor, while their machines worked very quickly. They took but one day to finish the base of their constructions over 500 square meters. A certain large machine attracted Hu Yuhao's attention. There was a drill-like thing beneath this enormous machine. This drill was more than 5 meters in diameter, and it was constructed by hoisting components into place. This machine was very large, and the metal pillars from before formed the foundation for its construction. Some stabilizing mechanisms were built with those metal pillars as the skeleton. What are they trying to do, exactly? Hu Yuhao was very suspicious. Are they trying to drill into the ground? But what can be beneath the ground? An idea came to Hu Yuhao as he contemplated. Underground? What can be underground? There can only be one answer: resources. Can it be that there are some resources in the extreme north that the Sun Moon Empire needs? Or? Hu Yuhao did not continue observing from where he was, but ran further away and soared into the sky. He had been following the Sun Moon Empire's army over these days, but he had always been doing everything from the ground. His field of view would be a lot wider if he flew into the sky, and perhaps he could discover something then. The chill air was sharper, and the temperature even lower. However, those conditions didn't affect Hu Yuhao. He didn't have to use the snowy dance of ultimate ice. He only needed the domain of perpetual ice to form a layer of protection around him, and that was sufficient. Hu Yuhao gazed down as he flew high into the sky, and he quickly discovered some problems. There were some barracks established 25 kilometers from where the Sun Moon Empire's army was camped. That area should be within the Doling Empire's territory. The Heavenly Soul Empire's territory was in the other direction, and there seemed to be some old structures about 10 kilometers out. The Sun Moon Empire was currently camped between those two areas. Something's wrong. Hu Yuhao immediately descended after this simple observation before he flew towards the Heavenly Soul Empire's rickety structures. He used spiritual detection and discovered that the Sun Moon Empire's soldiers had long been standing guard in those old structures. There were many large machines inside those structures, and even though they weren't as advanced as the machines that the Sun Moon Empire had just constructed, he could tell that they were targeted at the ground. Resources, yes, resources. Hu Yuhao didn't go any closer. He was afraid to startle his enemies, and he was a little afraid of Juzi. Her devious trick had bested him once, and he had to be more careful in dealing with her. If he couldn't tell what was going on with the Sun Moon Empire, could he not tell from the Doling Empire's side? Even though they were all bordering the extreme north, their objectives were likely to be the same. He would naturally discover something if he went to observe the Doling Empire's barracks. Hu Yuhao turned around as he contemplated, and covered several dozen kilometers in the blink of an eye. The Doling Empire was clearly unaware that the Sun Moon Empire's great army had arrived. In the end, they were separated by national borders even though they were so close to each other. The Doling Empire was still upholding their agreement with the Heavenly Soul Empire that they wouldn't send any scouts to conduct reconnaissance within the Heavenly Soul Empire's territory. Hu Yuhao was full of admiration for Juzi as he confirmed the barracks positions on this side. If the Sun Moon Empire had come any closer to this side, they would likely have been discovered by the Doling Empire. The Sun Moon Empire's current position was close to the other side, but they were somewhere where it wasn't easy to be discovered. There was no doubt that, with the Sun Moon Empire's Fire Phoenix Legion, they could destroy the Doling Empire's army without breaking a sweat. But if they did that, they would undoubtedly alert the Doling Empire. Judging from the current situation, the Sun Moon Empire evidently didn't want to be exposed so quickly. Too cunning. Even though he didn't want to admit that Juzi was one of the Sun Moon Empire's generals, he had to admit that she was very talented in military matters. She was definitely superior to him. He landed close to the Doling Empire's barracks, and his spiritual detection immediately stretched over the barracks like an enormous web. He quickly discovered what he needed to know. The Doling Empire's barracks had clearly been around for a relatively longer time. There was an army of 2,000 standing guard on this side, and there were also many workers hard at work. The surface of the earth was freezing. However, the temperature beneath the ground was a lot higher. There was no doubt that this was the publicly recognized location to work on, and they were excavating some minerals from beneath the ground. Rare metals. Hu Yuhao finally got his answer.
竟不在泰坦选无缘之
He
下。
hadn't expected that the Sun Moon Empire's objective was a vein of rare metals that had appeared on the borders of the extreme
拦不
north.
了我的。
The Doling Empire was 30 kilometers from the Sun Moon Empire's camp, and about 50 kilometers from the Heavenly Soul Empire's old barracks. There was no doubt that the Heavenly Soul Empire was originally mining here as well.
岂能容你这小小
This
的
meant
火器
that the
撒野？
underground mine could possibly stretch out 50
他们
kilometers.
毁了我的一切，
How abundant did those rare metals have to
竟
be?
不在泰坦选无缘之
It
下。
was no wonder that
我
the
要报
Empress,
仇。
Juzi, would venture out in person.
带你
The
离开日月帝
resources
国。
here were equally important to the Sun Moon
Okay, then.
Empire. They were very advanced in soul tools, but crafting soul tools, especially high-level ones, had an equally heavy requirement for materials. Hu Yuhao's eyes were opened, and he finally understood the Sun Moon Empire's objective. No, we cannot let them succeed, no matter what.
他的体现
If the Sun
竟不
Moon
在泰坦
Empire
选无缘
manages
之
to
下。
obtain the incredibly large amounts of rare metals here to support them, who knows how many more soul tools they can craft to use against the Dodor continent's 3 empires.
我也
I have to find a way to ruin her plan. However, Hu Yuhao was no longer so worried when he discovered Ju Zi's plan. The reason was simple: mining a mineral vein like this required a lot of human and material labor. They couldn't achieve anything overnight.
他的体现
The Sun Moon
竟不
Empire
在泰
had
坦
to
选无
mine
缘之
over a
下。
long period of
我要
time.
报仇。
Juzi and the others should first be establishing a base for excavation before they would start as quickly as possible so that they could transport the rare metals back to the Sun Moon Empire. Since that was the case, he had a chance. A cold grin appeared on Hu Yuhao's face. I can't deal with the Sun Moon Empire's army by myself. Just as the Snow Empress said, we are
他
in
们
the
毁了我的
extreme
一
north.
切，
This was the Snow Empress, the Ice Empress, and the Sky Dream Iceworm's old home. Without discussing the great boost in strength for someone who possessed an ultimate ice martial soul, this was the world that the Snow Empress had ruled over a long time ago. The Snow Empress status in the extreme north was like the Beast God status in the Great Star Do Forest. Snow Empress, Ice Empress.
岂能容你这小小的火
Hu
器撒
Yuhao
野？
channeled his thoughts and summoned the 2 empresses.
他们毁了我的一
Two
切，
lights flickered as the Ice Empress and the Snow Empress emerged from his body at the same time.
我要报仇。
Ever since they came across the manifold mysterious ice essence, the 2 empresses had been integrating with the ice essence, and their origin powers were now a lot stronger than before. Even though they were still energy bodies, their forms were no different from material forms when they emerged from Hu Yuhao this time. The Ice Empress blushed faintly as she saw Hu Yuhao. This was the first time that she was facing him after she had revealed her true emotions when the
竟不在
Snow
泰坦
Empress
选无缘
provoked
之下。
her.
我要
Hu
报仇
Yuhao。naturally wouldn't tease her at a time like this.
带你离开日月
He
帝国。
lowered his voice and said, Ice Empress, Snow Empress, I have figured out the Sun Moon Empire's objective. They are trying to extract the rare metals here. How do we destroy their operation so that they can't take these resources away?
岂能容
Ice
你这小
Empress
小的火
resolved
器
her
撒野？
embarrassment as she rushed to speak.
他
Isn't
们
that
毁了我
simple?
的一切，
We'll chase them all away, and then we'll extract it for ourselves.
我要报仇
Hu。Yuhao's facial muscles spasmed as he watched her speak
带你
so
离开日
casually.
月帝国。
这拦不了
He
我。
thought to himself, everyone who is in love seems to be blinded, whether they are soul beasts or humans. What about you, Snow? The Snow Empress thoughts should be more normal. The Snow Empress said plainly, Ice is
岂能
right.
容你这小小的火器
We'll
撒
chase
野？
them away, and this place will belong to us.
他们毁了我的一
This
切
is，our territory anyway, and anybody who wants to come into our place to pillage is asking to
我要
die.
报仇。
Hu Yuhao almost choked on his own saliva as he forced a laugh and said, The 2 of you think too highly of me. I am very ashamed. I don't have the strength to help you guys chase them away. The Snow Empress' answer was plain. Have you forgotten that
岂
I
能
said
容你
this
这
is
小
our
小的火器
territory?
撒野？
We are the true dictators of this
他们
place.
毁了我的一切，
Even though we have become your spirits, and we no longer possess the strength we did back then, it doesn't change the facts. A thought occurred to Hu
带你离
Yuhao.
开日月帝国。
这
Are
拦
you
不了
saying
我
that。we should draw on?
我可以带你。
The Snow Empress tilted her head slightly as she pointed with her right hand toward the ground. The snow and ice around them instantly transformed into cyclones as snowflakes danced through the air.
岂
The
能容你
surrounding
这小小的
temperature
火器撒
immediately
野？
plummeted as her eyes became a little listless.
他们毁了我的一
It
切，
feels so good to be
他
back.
的体现
This
竟不
is
在
our
泰坦
home.
选无缘之下。
The Ice Empress nodded and chimed in.
你走，
Yes,
带你离开
this
日
is
月
the
帝国。
first time that we've been back ever since we left with Hu Yuhao.
我
Let's go, Yuhao. We'll let them hustle. You'll follow us into the extreme north, and we'll go into the core circle. All right. The two queens had spoken their piece. There was no other reason for him to hesitate. Yes, the Ice Empress and the Snow Empress had ruled over the Ice-type and Snow-type soul beasts in the extreme north's icy plains for several 100,000 years, and their authority in this place ran deep. Even though they had become spirits, they were still dictators in this place. Hui Yuhao soared into the sky as he flew towards the extreme north's core circle. Inside the Fire Phoenix Legion's commander's tent, Juicy calmly gave order after order. These orders included several important tracks. She understood Hui Yuhao too well, and from her perspective, he was extremely intelligent, even though he sometimes did things based on his emotions. Juicy knew that capturing him again after failing to do so the last time around would be even more difficult. She didn't want to be enemies with Hui Yuhao, but she was very clear that he would not give up on messing with her army when she didn't kill him. Furthermore, with his intelligence and abilities, it wouldn't take long for him to figure out what she was doing with such a large army. In the end, something like this was very hard to hide. Juicy didn't intend to conceal her intentions any longer. She became a little excited and enthusiastic when she found out that Hui Yuhao was her opponent. Perhaps this was the best opportunity for them to clash. Such a long time had passed, and Hui Yuhao's strength had actually grown to such a level. She could feel that he was at least a soul sage, but he also had twin martial souls. His spiritual-type martial soul should have given him the soul skill that allowed him to conceal himself, and his ice-type soul skills naturally came from his ultimate ice marital soul. It was no wonder that his abilities were so powerful. The extreme north could be said to be his turf. But so what? I will never lose. Juicy's subordinates had all left, and she stood up by herself as a faint smile appeared on her face. You still come, Yuhao? I am eagerly waiting for that to happen. To be honest, I am not willing to become your opponent, but this is truly very interesting. We can have a great battle here in the extreme north, and we shall see who will overpower who. I will not give you a chance to give me any more trouble if you end up in my hands. At least, I will only let you go after I complete my objective here. Do you know, I am regretting not bringing you back last night a little, but there are some things that you don't know about. Juicy smiled mysteriously as her thoughts stopped there. There was a secret deep in her heart that only she knew. Yes, she was the only one who knew, and she would protect this secret forever. Yuhao, do you know that the happiness that you have given me will remain by my side? Part 2 end here.
他们毁了我的一切。
他的体现尽不在泰坦雪无缘之下。
我要报仇。
你走，带你离开日月帝国。
是拦不了我的。
我可以带你。
我